going on, everybody? So I wanted to get this out before I get a little bit too more under the weather and unspeakable or unhearable. So yeah, when it came to last time's Floyd Boucard, that four-star defensive lineman committing to USC, I forgot to mention that they did jump all the way up to number 10 in the country, so that was cool to see. Hopefully they can still build on that momentum. It was a tough weekend this weekend, but I'll get into why in a little bit. And then on that Thursday before that game versus Minnesota, Drake London, their ex-wide receiver, went off on that Thursday night game. He had 12 receptions, 154 yards, and 1 touchdown, which was cool. And then also Jakeem Stewart, that five-star defensive lineman who's considered the number 1 player in the 2026 class, looks like he's going to be reclassifying to 2025, so you've heard me speak about that before. And it looks like he's now the number 19 overall player, apparently, in this class, but it looks like he has set up a November 16th or 18th, something like that, visit to USC. He only set up 4 visits, so it seems like that's going to be his final 4, the 4 teams he's focusing on. So hopefully, and luckily, USC is high up on his list. And Caleb Williams over the weekend did tie a rookie record for the Bears of most 300-yard games thrown, and I think he did that in a victory versus the Carolina Panthers, so that was very cool. Congrats to him, and hopefully he can break that record pretty soon. So I think he did that first 300 game in a loss. So at least this was a victory, a big-time blowout versus Carolina, which is an easier team, but luckily they were able to get that. As I mentioned, USC versus Minnesota, they were leading USC 17-10 at the end of the third quarter, but of course everything goes to crap, and they end up losing that game 24-17. The bad offensive line, very costly fumble by Quentin Joyner when they were leading down to probably score a bit more points. There was a missed field goal as well. There was a late interception at the end when they were trying to score at the end. And also Zach Branch, the wide receiver, dropped a very big pass on third down, hit him right in the face. And yeah, bad refs, of course, in this one too. So it just seems like it used to be bad officiating, like bad people at their jobs in the Pac-12, but when it comes to the Big Ten, it just seems like all these fouls are going against USC, and none of them against especially the home team when it comes to them playing in this new Big Ten conference when it's either Michigan or Minnesota right now. They get Penn State, USC does this weekend, and it's at home, so maybe they'll get the calls in this situation. And they didn't get calls in that game against Wisconsin when they had it at their home, so I don't know what's going on here, but hopefully it can get picked up. But even after this weekend, they are completely out of the AP poll, which is pretty ridiculous, especially since Michigan lost 2 over the weekend in a pretty close game as well to a team that doesn't have as great of a record too, like Minnesota, but yet they're still ranked like 24 in that ranking, which still doesn't make sense. And even I'm kind of trusting now ESPN's Football Power Index because they still have USC at number 13 overall in their top 25 because they still believe, and I guess their analytics or numbers are telling them differently compared to what the AP poll is. But either way, I guess right now I'm going to stop continuing to look up what the AP poll is because it's just ridiculous. And 5-star Darren Peterson looks like he set a November 1st commitment date, and USC is in his Final Four, so hoping for the best right there in that situation. And the women's volleyball team had some pretty good wins this last week. They did beat Michigan. Unlike the football team, they beat them 3-2. It was a reverse sweep, so they were down 2-0, and then they won 3 straight games to win, which is really cool. And then they also upset the number 12 team in Minnesota, so the women's team in volleyball beat Minnesota 3-1, so that was very cool and very dominant by them this last week, so hopefully they can continue with it. I think they're still like the number 20-something ranked team, so they definitely should move up, especially over Minnesota, in my opinion. And then the men's basketball team did set up a couple of exhibition games. The first one is against UTSA, University of Texas San Antonio, then also against Gonzaga, which is more of like a charity exhibition. I guess a little bit of things to set up kind of like a preseason before the season starts, so we'll see what they do. Hopefully nobody gets hurt, obviously. Then when it came to the women's soccer team, yes, they did beat Oregon 2-0, which was very cool. So, yeah, they're still continuing to win. Still a top 25 team, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, the USC women's team is very good. And then there was a 5-star guard in Emilee Skinner who did commit to Duke basketball on the women's side. So, congrats to them and to her. Definitely a very talented player. Already plays for Team USA, so it's not that surprising. A lot of Team USA girls or guys go to Duke. But either way, definitely very happy about that commitment that happened recently. And then When it comes to the Duke football team, yes, once again, one of my teams was leading 14-10, leading at the end of 3 quarters, and then they obviously end up losing to Georgia Tech 14-24, which is their first loss of the season. This is one that I still have not gone back and look at the highlights officially and all this stuff. I did watch like the first part of the game, and it seemed okay. They were moving the ball, but I guess they just couldn't move the ball once again. After that, and like I said, Georgia Tech was a pretty good team. They had that big upset against Florida State to start the season, but I still expected a little bit more of a fight and not just like a complete collapse on offense when it comes to Duke. So hoping for the best in this situation moving forward. Hopefully it's just a little bit of a misstep. And then on the next one, the women's soccer team ended up beating number 25 Virginia 3-1, and they beat Louisville 3-1 last week as well. So they're the number 2 team ranked in the nation, had a nice ranked win against Virginia, so hopefully they could still stay there or even move up to number 1. I do not mind at all. And the Anaheim Ducks cleared a couple of guys. They waived, I believe his name was Oscar Danks and Jansen Harkins, and they both cleared waivers, and apparently they somehow go back to the Anaheim Ducks, so they just assigned them to their San Diego Gulls. They're basically G League, their secondary team, so they're going to be there just in case there's more injuries and stuff. So I guess they're pretty excited to have those guys back in the program still. So we'll see where they end up during the season. So thanks for watching, people. Like and subscribe, comment down below, let me know what y'all think. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.